reflect that all commissioners minus Root are present. And now we will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Support. Motion and support to approve the agenda. Any additions?
Yes.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would add that we'll have a discussion on bonding in reference to Huntington's Banks. Individuals are here yesterday. That'll come at the end. And then on I, there will be a motion, and I'll read this motion that we'll have in my report. A 4% increase for all non-reps effective November 1st, 2021, redlining all APAs within their band until they reach their original wage study step. That would be the motion I would ask for approval on. And we, a lot of this. Yes, finance, yep.
Okay, any discussion over those two proposed agenda items?
Where are you putting the bonding?
So it would be as it stands, we would, if the commissioner's pleasure, will add an I under an increase in wages, and then after I, we'll do a discussion item. Over
On bonding, yeah.
How does that sound?
Does that work? Okay.
Any discussion questions over the agenda? All right, hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda with the addition, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, agenda is approved. And now we'll move into our public comment section. And we'll start off with Shelley Ochnicki from Shiawassee, Michigan.
Good evening. My name is Shelley Ochnicki. I wear many different hats in the community. Probably the biggest reason for me to be here tonight is I am the Vice President of Wausau Public Schools Board of Education. I am 3 terms in 12 years this year, actually, serving our community proudly so, even through these challenging times. As we know, and I want to give a little bit of history first, kind of if I can. So back last year and a half ago, we shut down schools, obviously, March 2020 due to COVID. Reopening schools, fall 2021, with much uncertainty and many challenges to overcome. Anyone in the education world probably understands. Brandon understands a lot of this. Knows that it was a challenging time. We had to make very difficult decisions last minute, and we were given the COVID mandates by our governor that we had to go through. We pretty much didn't have too much flexibility within that COVID plan. It was sent to us, and as districts, we had to vote it in or don't get paid. So we lost a lot of, I felt like, our local voice. I am an elected official that works for the people. I am the governing body for our school district, and I've always wanted to have more of a voice. I want to say, back then, the conversations I was hoping to have, which we were never allowed, is that we could do it county by county. We could work with our local health department, we could work with a panel of local doctors, look at our numbers, follow the data, and kind of try to make those decisions that are best for our community locally. Obviously, we were given that opportunity. In an ideal world, I think that would have been more suitable for our districts. So from there, we elected that, or voted that in. Throughout the year, it was changed. Sometimes it seemed like on a daily basis. It was challenging to follow, to keep up with. It really sent us in a tailspin. We're in school, we're out of school, all that comes with that. And it just didn't pertain to COVID, but the mental health and wellness of our children. June 30th, that all ended 2021 for us, for our districts. And then it was July meeting, back to normal, looking good for fall, gonna open up our schools normal. The week before school started, I caught wind of our governor and MDHHS deciding to place these new ideas of requirements and mandates or guidance onto our local health departments. Sadly, so I still feel like the governing elected body as the school board was still overpassed in some of these decisions. But then Genesee County did decide to take out a mask mandate, maybe some other things, I'm unsure. So, rumor had it, Shiawassee County was going to do a mask mandate that week. Already done? Sorry.
That was actually my fault. I didn't let you know. 3 minutes, but we had you hold it till the second, and we'll give you more time. Sorry to cut you off like that.
well, it's just hard
I
to say
should've
when I
told you
gotta
ahead of
stay.
time. No, I know.
without that. I'm sorry, I didn't realize there was a timer there. I wasn't gonna stay. Alright, I will come back.
We'll move on. I'm sorry, that was my fault. I should have
That's
mentioned.
okay.
3 minutes on these. Mr. Tom Menke from Wausau.
I think that I'll give my time. I know you guys don't want to do this, but this is very important. This is something that you need to hear. She's the vice president of the school board, and you cut her off. And this isn't just normal me or someone else coming up to talk to you. That was very unfair and not right that you cut her off. She should have been given the same that was given to another person that sat here, that was here the other night. You gave him, who wants one of these jobs here sometime. And you know who I'm talking about. You gave him that time. And you let him go on. Don't shake your head at me. I seen it. I was watching it. And he sat right here, and he had his book, and he even thanked you for letting him go on and on. She has something very important that you need to hear about her health department, and you don't want to hear it. Right now, we have schools that are doing these mandates, but they haven't been given a mandate. They've received a letter, and I'm not going to get in what you're talking about, I'm going on what I'm talking about. They've gotten this letter from the schools, from the health department, saying required. Schools can't do mandates. The health director has to sign them. He won't sign them. He doesn't want people mad at him, because people are going to come after him. It's his job. If the schools are going to be required to do this nonsense, and it is nonsense, pure nonsense, then there's got to be signed mandates from our health department, because somebody's got to be held responsible. He doesn't want to be responsible, so he's hanging it out on the school districts. Schools can't do their own mandates, but he's telling them verbally, this is my mandate, you have to do it. I have no idea where she was going to go with hers, but this is very important. You need to hear this. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Tom Menke. Paula Brooks.
Hello, Paula Brooks from Durant. The county website states the board is responsible for approval of personnel procedures and matters as one of your duties. At your last meeting, I was flabbergasted to learn performance reviews are not done for county employees, starting from top employee on down. To use such excuses as we don't know how, so we would have to hire a professional to do, we have to do everyone, to we've never done it before, are completely absurd. These are out-of-touch comments in the real world. Employees are given reviews in all manner of employment across the country every day. It's a normal process and has been for decades. My former employer did annual reviews on my anniversary date, plus I did reviews for those I supervised. A simple online search explains why they're done, provides a variety of templates and how-tos. Reviews show how an employee has improved compared with earlier reviews. When done right, it can help employees understand what they're doing well, how they can modify or change behavior toward more efficient work habits, and how their work aligns with larger company goals, including the possibility of assuming more responsibility. Reviews are oftentimes tied to salary increases based on performance and seniority. Without a review, how would an employee know they weren't doing the job expected of them? How could you release that employee without them coming back on you? Anonymous evaluations by the whole board are done individually with scores merged together to present to the employee. The board then meets with the employee who has done their own evaluation. Happy employers and employees are the ultimate goal. I would suggest all of you reread Section 9 of the Employment Agreement for the Shiawassee County Coordinator dated June 19, 2020. Points A to E discuss all of the points I mentioned above. Point F has a built-in out clause in case an evaluation is not done, which I find to be a complete cop-out and dereliction of duty by this board if you fail to pursue doing a review. addition, it should become a requirement that all non-elected employees be evaluated annually in the future. A possible new human resources manager could easily implement doing reviews throughout the county departments. To help guide you in your future responsibilities, I'm providing each of you a generic performance review template to get you started in this process. If we as taxpayers and as your employer rated your performance based on the last few months of activity, a number of goals and behaviors would definitely be in question and in need of change. But then that ballot box awaits we as members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. At this time, we'll turn the floor over to Karma Chandler. Also, Ms. Chandler.
Hi everyone, I'm Karma Chandler, and I'm here tonight as a concerned parent due to the COVID mandate that has been placed upon the Shiawassee Public Schools from the Shiawassee County Health Department Director Larry Johnson. First of all, I'm sure most of you are aware that at the start of the school year, there were COVID recommendations for the Shiawassee County Public Schools, but there were no mandates. When my husband and I decided to sign up our child for Corona Public Schools again this year, we were fully aware that there were no COVID mandates whatsoever for the school district in the county, for any school district in the county. Otherwise, we had a backup plan to send our child elsewhere. In fact, when every parent in this county registered their child for school this year, they were aware that there were no COVID mandates. Families knew what they were signing up for. COVID is not new this year. We will soon be approaching the 2-year mark. People are fully aware of the COVID risks. For many, no COVID mandates was a determining factor as to where families place their children. There are other options for schooling. There is online, there is homeschooling, and there are private schools. But every family that signed their children up knew there were no mandates, and they signed their children up for the public schools in this county anyway. Then, for unknown reasons to the public, on October 7th, or 8th, I'm not even sure exactly which, a mandate came from Larry Johnson saying the health department needed to quarantine all close contact students would be forced into quarantine. This overwhelmed some of the local school districts, specifically Corona. They were so busy dealing with contact tracing and calling people and figuring out who sat by who in each of their hours, in each of their classes, in each of their schools, that the quarantine numbers of students compounded into the hundreds. They couldn't keep up. They were then told by Larry Johnson, mask up the kids, then nobody will have to quarantine. Simple solution, right? Well, not for families like mine. Our son is a 13-year-old that attends Corona High School. He knows breathing in his own carbon dioxide all day is not healthy. Let me share some things about my 13-year-old. He's not a troublemaker. He is well liked by everyone he meets. He's an honor student and the 8th grade class president. He's the top runner on the middle school cross country team. He plays the piano and is a drummer in the band. He's also in drama, swimming, basketball, baseball, and track and field. Most importantly, he attends youth group and church, and he loves God and his country. He knows his rights are being infringed upon by these mandates, and he will not stand for it. He has drawn the line in the sand, and for it, he has had to spend the week in in-school suspension outside of the classroom where he is entitled to his education. So now what? Where did this come from? There's no explanation. So he is just supposed to miss school for the next 3 weeks. I have more, but maybe I can continue at the end today.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for listening.
Yep. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address this committee at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll move into our committee motions and reports. And
Chairman?
Yes.
Were we going to have any kind of a,
Yeah, we can do that.
possible board response?
Absolutely. If you want to do that, we can go ahead and do that. I don't know that we have heard everything that we maybe are going to hear. Would we rather do that at the end?
Well, perhaps response might affect the,
Okay.
I don't mean to extend the meeting, but I thought that I should mention that I have heard from constituents regarding this, and I think I can add 2 cents that perhaps
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear a little bit.
would
because I haven't
clarify a
heard
couple of
those
things. I know at the
Before we
beginning-
move on, are we all okay with this?
It's fine.
Okay. Well,
All right. I apologize ahead of time if I got any of my facts wrong. This is sort of a cursory understanding of this, and if it's possible, our health director will issue some clarifications after this, but my understanding at the beginning of the year was that there were only recommendations to the schools coming out of our health department, Larry's office, and there were no mandates. At a certain point, our health department got a letter from the state, from the Attorney General's office, I believe, or another department saying that these are not recommendations, that under state law, that quarantines were required in an epidemic situation. That is, if students tested positive for COVID, they were required to be isolated, and students that had direct contact were required to be quarantined. This was not an option that the schools could have. Now, there were some options, though, for the schools. One of them, as I understand it, was that quarantine students did not have to stay home, that quarantine students could be masked and tested on a daily basis with a rapid test, and if they did not test positive, then they would have to mask for a certain period. I don't remember what it was, 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever it was, and as long as they didn't have symptoms, that this could happen. And my understanding is that Corona was taking this option to, in effect, test out of the quarantine process, allow the students to be in, and try to do, as was mentioned by someone's very, very difficult task of tracking direct contact and more quarantines and so on. And what happened is they were getting so many students that tested positive and quarantine students that were staying home that they were in danger of not having enough students at school to get their mandated minimum and actually have it count for a school day. So they were on the edge of closing the schools. Again, excuse me if I've gotten I'm giving a broad overview of this. It was not the decision of our health department to have all the students masked up, but it was the decision of the school board itself in an emergency session that if all the students masked up, then they could meet the requirements and everybody could be at school. That was in no way a mandate from anyone in the county to do that sort of thing. Apparently that was done in Perry and it did stop an outbreak. Again, whether you agree with it or not, I'm not even saying, I'm just sort of giving the facts here, that these are the things that happened, and some of it was driven by state law. That is the quarantine and the isolation. In addition, it should be noted that this board, even if we completely disagree with our health department under a pandemic situation, we have no power whatsoever to overrule our health director, discipline him, fire him, or anything else. That in a pandemic situation, our health director has certain powers that are given to him by the state, and certain requirements that he has to follow. There may be, I admit, details, I don't know, but that is my understanding thus far of what's going on. That's all I have to say.
Any other discussion? Mr. Webster?
Okay. I think Commissioner Berger did a fantastic job explaining that.
So to be clear, there's no mandate from the county on county school districts right now? Mr. Barnes?
I would just go back to the health director, Mr. Bergen, to explain if you would so choose.
Yeah.
I think we should be careful here with this discussion. We gotta let the public have their comments. What Mr. Bruder said was very accurate.
Okay.
It's exactly accurate. I think there's some confusion on a mask mandate in Corona that was done by the schools, not me. They consulted with me. They have my full support.
So that was an actionable item on the board?
Yes.
Okay, so citizens should be discussing with the school board?
Correct.
That does clear the way. Has an actionable item like that happened on the Owasso school board?
No.
Okay, so it is school by school. Okay, well, that does clear up a little bit.
I mean, personally, I believe there's been a lot of hysteria regarding COVID and our reactions and overreactions in some sect, but a lot of times we're kind of stuck by what the law says we have to do. As we often know, mandates and requirements come thundering down from above, from state and federal level, and we're just required to follow them, or our funding is in trouble. So sometimes we're catching spears that are undeserved.
Any other committee members care to question, talk, respond? All right, in that case, now we'll go ahead and we'll move into our committee motions and reports, and we'll start off with our Finance and Administration Committee. Chairman of that committee is Commissioner Plowman. Mr. Plowman, the floor is
Thank you,
yours.
Mr. Chairman. I had moved to authorize MERS to allow Brandon Worrell to purchase 1 year of service credit as requested.
Support.
Item A has been moved by Commissioner Plowman, supported by Commissioner Garber. Questions or discussion over this item? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of item A moving on to tomorrow for a final vote, signify by saying aye.
I
Any opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries with 1 nay. Ayes have it.
I move to approve the creation and posting of the Human Resources Manager application.
Support.
Item B, moved by Commissioner Plowman, supported by Chairman Broder. Questions or discussion regarding this item?
I
Yes.
Question, and I was discussing this with Chairman Berger ahead of time. So we have not 100% decided we're doing this. We're posting. We haven't decided if this is a full-time position. Is that correct? Am I understanding correctly?
Good question. How does
The
that?
parameters are still
It
being
would be
determined.
posted as a full-time position, but I don't know that we can get any applicants, considering the number of applicants that we've gotten for some other positions. So any final decision would have to be brought back to the board.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this doesn't authorize you necessarily to hire anyone.
We're just gonna post it, we're gonna look at the interviews, the board is formed a committee, to meet and interview people.
Who's on that interviewing committee?
Chairman?
I have requested, of course, Dr. Boggs to be on that, myself, and Commissioner Root and Commissioner, and Marlene, has agreed to be on it. I think that gives us sort of a nice sampling of the board and administration. So, hopefully, I'll get agreement from all those people, okay, to make the decision.
Yes, Mr. Holzhauer.
I don't think we need one, but I don't think we need a babysitter. We haven't had one all these years and we got by, so it's just another employee, another expense that we don't need, so.
Well, Gary, I can't say I disagree. I have been on board with this for the last year or so, but, I don't know that bringing another employee into this kind of work environment would be fair to them or us, so I'm not sure this is the right time.
Commissioner Hall?
Yeah, we'll take a look here. Besides the position might be combined with other positions. So this is just getting the process moving in a direction that could work if we so desire to do it.
Got a time frame on how long we intend to leave it up? Probably more than a month.
I would probably leave it up, if the board approves it tomorrow, we will post it and until the next board meeting, and then we can see if we have any applicants, and then the board can decide if, by looking at the applicants, they wish to review them, they wish to proceed with interviews, etc. The chair can bring you back a recommendation.
Commissioner Holzhauer?
What's the pay scale?
It is a 9, which is between 47 and 57,000.
What a waste of money, in my opinion.
Any other discussion over this item? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of moving B forward onto a final vote tomorrow, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That motion will pass with 3 nays, 2 nays, and 3 yays. 2 nays.
Four.
4, I mean, yes, to me. The nays being Holzhausen and
Yeah, I think it's 4 to 2.
who was 4? I panicked.
Too bad we couldn't get 3.
Moves on to tomorrow. Okay. I move to approve the revised Shiawassee County Personnel Policy as presented.
Support.
Item C moved by Commissioner Plowman, supported by Commissioner Garber. Questions or discussion?
I have just one item of discussion. I wonder, so I noticed that under our insurance buyout, there's a fixed amount, $6,000, and I'm not sure that putting actual amounts in an employee handbook is a good policy. I think it would be better to say as fixed by the Board of Commissioners or something like that. I just don't like in a policy book to lock in an actual number.
So we went back and forth with this on the committee about whether we should lock it in or not lock it in. We've had some issues previously with hurt feelings among union employees that put in a different number in their contract, and the board approves a different number every year, and then we don't pay them the difference between it. And so that has caused some hurt feelings among some of the employee groups. The other part is putting it in the handbook does make it more competitive for us, because, and Larry has the numbers of the school districts that are around us. Do you remember what they were?
Yeah, Powassos is at 5,600. The RSD is a staggered amount, based on the number of employees that take it, capped at about 4,000. Coronas is 500 a month, if a certain number of employees take it, so that's 6,000. Holly Schools is 6,000, based on the number of employees. We have a number of employees that take it.
How many employees do we have that take it?
So right now, we have 224 employees that are insured and 41 employees that are buyouts. So with the averaging a family plan, it costs somewhere around $960,000 if they were all to take it. With the payout, at its current one, we pay out about 147, moving it up, we pay out about 246. So our savings would still be in the neighborhood of $700,000. So because a single family plan is 8,000, a double family plan is 8,900, and a family plan is $23,575 a year. So even at 6,000, there's still a savings for it, and if we can get a few more to take it, the savings is about $20,000 or so per, or maybe a little less, per employee when they take the buyout versus taking insurance. And it's completely up to the board if they want it in there or not in there. You currently do it by resolution every single year.
Well, because it also says or negotiated in union contracts, so there's still that flexibility
The
for
union
it. It
contracts
says 6,000 or negotiated.
Yeah, so the union contracts have, the ones that have been done so far, you'll see it in this one in particular that's in front of you under the insurance buyout, which is it's in here somewhere, and it gives them the flexibility to go with what the board has said, that sets a minimum. But we have to find it in the policy under.
I think we do.
But whatever the direction the board wishes to go, I don't think that putting it in there or not putting it in there is a sticking point. You just need to decide what you want it to be.
Mr. Chair? Yes. So as far as commissioners being availed of these benefits, that goes back to the 1980s, I believe?
And,
Maybe
what was her name?
maybe 80s.
Was a resolution passed by,
Yeah, it was the board I served on at that time.
yes, who was the chair at that time?
Bart Pettibo.
A resolution passed by Barb Clatterball that says commissioners get the same benefits that all full-time employees get, which is not out of line with the document that I have for you guys, from the wage study that shows what other counties get.
I mean, I don't think that, this is written in stone. We can revise it at any time by this board, but I would be open to having the discussion now or in the future of not availing commissioners of any of those benefits.
As we do with the board. As you can see, there is a variety between what different counties do. Some offer retirement, health, dental, vision, life, depending on which county it is. included in here is providing retirement and health and life, Cass County life insurance, Clinton County retirement, health, dental, vision, life insurance, Iconia, retirement, health, dental, vision, life, Isabella, health, dental, vision, life insurance, Lapeer, retirement, health, dental, vision, life, Marquette, retirement, health, dental, vision, life, Montcalm, retirement, life, Newaygo, retirement, health, dental, vision, life insurance, and Tuscola, retirement, life insurance. It's up to the board.
That's all I have.
The commissioners' discussion? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think everybody thinks that it's just a part-time job, and we're only here 4 days out of the month. You know, I'm on a lot of committees, on 4 of them, and I'm there at nights, on the Health and Wellness Board, I'm on the Shiawassee Economic Board, I'm on the 911 Board, I'm on the Senior System Board, so, and I have calls all the time on weekends and at nights and everything else, so it's not really a part-time job. We don't work 4 days and shut everybody off the rest of the year, or the rest of the day, or the rest of the month, so.
Oh, Gary, I absolutely agree. There's a lot of work that goes on in this administration office that none of us are a part of on a day-to-day basis. But if the public feels that we should not be availed of these benefits, then I am certainly open to the discussion of removing all of them.
I haven't taken health care since I've been on the board, so. This is my 6th year, so.
Yeah, I don't get sick, so doesn't matter to me.
What about other items? There's a lot of things in here, but anything else?
Just a question, about whether department heads and employees have had a chance to review the handbook.
They have not yet.
Okay.
So it was the committee that was formed that reviewed it, and then we will be sending it out after that. It affects non-reps immediately. And then Eric and myself will be working with the policy to get to the union groups.
Yeah, I prefer not to vote on something that the department heads and, employees haven't seen. It affects them, they haven't had input.
Well, it's not quite, it's not a democracy to form it that way for the handbook.
True. So we have a motion on the floor.
Yep, any other discussion? Okay, this is item C. All in favor of moving this on to tomorrow, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
1 nay. Chair Webster. It passes. On to tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item D, continuous discussion of the land purchase of property in downtown Corona.
Support.
Item D, moved by
Well-
Commissioner Plowman.
Yeah,
Actually, there's really no need to
make a motion.
discuss.
Yeah.
If you want to have a motion, then you can do that.
We can work our way into a motion if you want to, or I can make the motion.
I thought we were just gonna discuss it.
Well, we can
Well,
discuss it.
We discussed it one day, I don't know what we.
We can't put a motion in without changing the agenda, can we?
I think motions can come out of discussion. that's on
Yeah,
the
because
Yes.
we're.
Yeah, it is
now,
listed.
Tomorrow, it could not. It would
Oh,
require a
alright.
two-third vote because that's an actual board meeting. This is simply a committee.
Committee.
Alright,
Well, in that case, I would make the motion that we would proceed with the purchase of the property in downtown Corona that we've been negotiating on for what, 8 months, 9 months? And finally got the chain of ownership all worked out, and so on and so forth.
Not quite yet, but it's getting
We're
close.
sitting close, yes. I'd make that motion.
Support.
I think the goal is whether you want to purchase it or not, to direct Eric to finalize the document
Okay.
and the purchase agreement. You want to weigh in?
Yeah, I would just say that there have been drafts exchanged, but given the passage of time, it seems like if there was a desire to reaffirm the county's desire to go forward with this, there will need to be things addressed with the title in the purchase agreement because it is not resolved. So I want to be very clear about that.
Okay.
I view this as allowing myself and Commissioner Boggs to get a purchase agreement out there, revised up and ready, and see what we can do and make sure that it serves the interests of the county, because we don't want to buy something that has a clouded title, at least without a plan to deal with it, right?
My understanding that there have to be demolitions on property.
Well, you would just have to secure it in some way, shape, or form, or determine what it is you wish to do with it. Tracy and myself did talk about this, and if you convert it into green space until such time as you're ready to do something with it, it could be considered a park, which would be a expense that you could use some of the stimulus money for if you so desire. But that's really up to the board and what you wish to do with it.
We could add a caveat to this motion. We would if it's a firm, we could put a caveat here, of course, as to the legality of the contract, and that would be, as long as our attorney would okay it, then that would be fine.
Commissioner Holzhausen.
Yeah, I'm 100% opposed to it. We also got 23 acres out there that we got land that we can build or something. I heard that the VA office is really crowded. They don't like it up there. They haven't got room for security. Also, we got the zoning board up there. We got the environmental health up there. And so we could leave them there. We could move them out. We got the old Griffin home out there. I toured that. It's I don't know how many hundreds of square feet that we're heating. It's not used. It's just sitting there. I don't know why we can't remodel that and move environmental health and zoning out there. They both work together. There's a room out there 30 by 30. There's also one room 20 by 20. It's all, it could be used for that. And I don't know why we want to invest more money downtown in Corona. I don't think we're in the investment, buying land and just using it for investment. If we was going to do that, we should have bought some farms years ago and use it for solar. We should buy a whole bunch of other ground just for investment purchases. We don't need, we sure don't need land downtown in Corona. So that's we got enough here. So any other commissioner wants to?
Yeah, I'm for it. The Griffin home, presently, probably 60% of it is the state is in there. They have programs for former criminals, and they run those programs out there. I went down today, and Gary's right, the building is not in too bad a shape. It's cinder blocks, got a good roof, has a lot of space in it. The space that we would look at for if you put the veterans in there, is actually the work release part of it that the sheriff runs. It's actually a jail. It is locked. And when we stopped having work release when COVID started, and work release could start up again, and if it did start up again, where would we put the veterans? Which most likely will start up. We've had work release for many years. Can the rest of the building be configured for something? It's chopped up. The state has control of a lot of it, and for their programs and the work release right now, you can't get in. It's like a jail. It has gates that lock and so on and so forth. The property in downtown Corona, it would add some needed nice touches for the city of Corona on Main Street. We've discussed with the gentleman who bought the old Cavalier lot, and he bought the buildings down from the property that the county is considering buying, to trade back some property, so we would construct, if the board so deems, a building right on this corner, right across, and would face Main Street. And we have discussed the fact that this building would have the veterans on the first floor. And then it would be a second floor and a third floor. The second floor probably would be a large conference room that could set more than 60 people. And then the third floor, there's been a lot of discussion, maybe that'd be a place for public defender. It is this opportunity to put it down here, it could stay on the table for another 10 years. Then we can look at the Cavalier lot that's gonna grow weeds, cut weeds though. Or we can try to work for the future. Yes, we'd have costs of purchasing the property at $47,000 approximately. Also, we'd have to tear down those buildings, and also we'd have to make the trade in space with the property owner. The same property owner owns the Cavalier lot and the lots down there. Yes, it would take a while, but we would try to alleviate the problem the veterans have with room. And I think this would be an excellent place to have it. Yeah, I think we should have a veterans on the first floor, of course, for not handicap, but accessibility. There would be we put the flags out front, I would think. That would be up to the veterans. They're going to plan it if we so go in this direction, and so on and so forth. I just think it's a really good avenue, and even if it didn't come to fruition and we had to sell the property in the future, it would be much more sellable as empty lots and a park than buildings that haven't been occupied as long as I can remember. So that's my spiel.
Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, it all sounds good. If we're gonna build, why don't we build out there? We don't have to spend the extra $100,000. We're gonna have parking problems down here. And leave the veterans where they are, move the other two out there. That's the better idea. They can have the whole upstairs. They can have the whole area up there. As far as being on the first floor, they can sure ride an elevator up there. That's not a big problem. And they're right here in Corona. They can go to the courts. They can hear. They've always been here. I don't know why you'd want to change them. And if we don't do nothing for 10 years, we're not in the real estate business. So I sure don't need another lot. So, and the parking's going to be problems. Move out there. The environmental health and them, move them out there. They have lots of room to park. Everything will be rosy. So.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. I also am opposed to this. I have spoken previously about it, not because I don't think it's the idea of building a building and having a green space, and we can have a whole wish list of stuff. I can have a wish list that we put a monorail in Corona to move from building to building, but the fact of the matter is we don't have the money. And I think talking about a new building and perhaps spending $1 million is a financial pipe dream. We just aren't going to have the money. And if we don't have the money for the project, the idea of buying a piece of land, tearing down a building, spending money right now to do that, when realistically looking into the near and medium future, I see no ability whatsoever that we could take advantage of that land to be then it becomes a waste of money. It would be like if I gave you a $1,000 gift certificate toward the purchase of a Rolls Royce. Okay, maybe someday you'll have the money, but more than likely that $1,000 is going to be wasted because you probably are never going to buy a Rolls Royce. I don't see how we'll ever build a building. It would be really nice to have, as would a whole lot of other things, but to me it is an unrealistic plan. So I am in favor of just killing the idea right now.
Any other commissioners? Yes.
I disagree with the financial end of it. I think it's quite doable. It isn't going to happen overnight, but I think the resources are there, and those resources have been discussed. So,
Final
my
comments? All right, hearing none. This is item D.
D.
All in favor of putting this on to the agenda tomorrow?
I think we ought to have a roll call vote.
You want a roll call vote? Madam Clerk?
I was just going to ask, what exactly is the motion?
It would be to purchase land.
Oh,
John made the motion.
yes. Madam Clerk, let me help you with that.
Oh,
I move to purchase the land in downtown Corona with the agreement with our attorney that everything is proper and concise and that it would be legal.
So you're moving to authorize the county attorney to finalize a purchase agreement
Gotcha.
on that property.
Very good.
And bring it back for your approval.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Much better said.
I'll start writing that down.
Why we taking the big bucks?
Okay, that's the motion. Commissioner Webster,
No,
Commissioner Holzhausen,
No,
Commissioner Root is absent. Commissioner Garber,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks,
No.
Commissioner Plowman,
Yes,
All right, then
and
motion
no,
fails.
Commissioner Broder.
No.
it fails.
Does fail.
Okay.
finally, we got a property that we don't need.
I move to approve the contract with the Circuit Court Association as presented.
Support?
And me moved and supported. Questions or discussion over this item?
I have one. We did have this on Monday's finance committee, and I asked that we not vote on it because we did not have it. So we have it now. I was trying to read it during public comment, but I don't, I did ask for it Monday, it was not available. I would have had time between Monday and today to read it. If we would have had more public comment, I could have read it longer, but I don't want to vote on something that I have not read.
Understand. Any other discussion over this item?
Would moving it on till tomorrow give you enough time? I mean, we're only going to move it on till tomorrow. Would that give you enough time?
Yeah, I'm still not gonna vote yes on something that I haven't read.
But what I mean is would you then have enough time by tomorrow to, because we'll actually.
Yeah, I mean, if I had like an hour, but, I mean,
I was just suggesting perhaps we move it along till tomorrow and then have a more thorough discussion on yes or no on this contract. Because the actual vote comes tomorrow, this is just to move it along.
No, this says approve the contract. The motion is to approve the contract, so we are going to,
With the full.
yes,
board.
to approve.
well, everything that's on Wednesday night is only moving it on to Thursday. We never approved
There's nothing
something.
finalized.
So then let's not say approve then, we just, Wednesday is just for fun.
Yeah, every one of us can vote yes today and no tomorrow, and it's a no. We go on the records as a no.
Who made this motion?
That's how committees work.
Commissioner Plowman.
Well, I don't know that contracts should be approved without reading them.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
So the motion reads approve the contract. It doesn't read, the motion does not say move this to tomorrow when we've all had time to read it. It says approve.
None of the motions say move them to tomorrow.
So,
Yes, they do. Move to Thursday Board of Commissioners meeting.
Yes, but not printed out on paper. That's not how it's printed here.
Commissioner Webster's right. Nothing is finalized until tomorrow. And the board chairman doesn't have authorization to execute any documents until after a final vote is taken on Thursday. That is the actual board meeting. That is how it works.
This
These
is just a
committees are
larger
to weed
committee
stuff
meeting
out.
that the larger committee then makes the recommendation to the whole board, and the entire board has to finalize it, and if between now and tomorrow, we say we don't like this contract, we can certainly say no.
That's correct.
Used to be 2 weeks of this weeding out stuff not long ago. All right, any other discussion?
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
You may.
It might be helpful to provide a very brief overview of some of there were not a huge number of changes in the contract, but
Go
some of
ahead.
it.
And we'll still get to your question.
Sorry, the brief overview is that this is a contract with the circuit court employees. So as you know, they're court employees, right? So they're not county employees, although the county has a certain role between the county and the courts in handling the financial arrangements and approving certain things. So the major things are that this does include a 4% increase for this year. It is a contract that would go to the end of 2023. A 3% raise next year, a 2% raise in the final year of the contract. There is also a bonus there is also a single one-time payment upon ratification that is in here. These were all negotiated between the clerk, the county, and the judge, as well as the association out there. There is also some changes to the vacation accrual language. The court employees did agree, like other employees, to close the defined benefit program. They also agreed to increase their contribution to the defined benefit program beginning as soon as that can be processed with MERS. They also did go out and obtain the help of an actual recognized labor union to bargain with them, so there is language in there about how that labor union is part of their bargaining team and how dues will be processed and things like that. Then of course Commissioner Boggs did discuss the insurance buyout provision, which basically does say it's the same as provided to the county employees, except it'll be no less than $3,600. So if it did go up, it would go up through operation of that contract. So I just bring those things to your attention, and we, so that and there was a small change to the holidays, I should say. A half day for election day was added every 2 years. The issue, just so you're aware, is that some of these things the county can insist on and draw the line on, and some of them they can't because of the nature of how court employees are managed versus county employees. So it's not as simple as saying the county can draw the line in every place that it wants to. So this represents the product of negotiations between all the parties. We did get some good cooperation, and it is the recommendation of me as your attorney, as well as Dr. Boggs as county coordinator, that you do support and ratify this. They've been without a contract for a long time now, and this would get that resolved. So that's kind of the basic overview.
I would add that our role in this was mostly as the funding unit.
That's correct.
So that included the MERS-related items and the increases of wages. The judge is the one that provided the holiday-related things. That's not, we have no control on.
Right, so again, that's a product of, we both have our spheres and they only overlap in certain areas.
Thank you for that.
Couple of questions,
Sure.
if I could.
Yep.
The signing bonus, is there an amount in here?
$1,250.
What that basically did was, if the contract, by the time the contract is ratified, it in effect would be a catch-up amount as if they had gotten their raise to the beginning of the year. It ends up being roughly equivalent.
So, can you briefly tell me, so our court employees are not county employees? That's something I wasn't aware of.
Right, so employees that work directly for the court, like these employees, are in a very interesting situation. The case law out there and the development of this is that because the courts are a separate and co-equal branch of government, the courts do need to have final say over things like hiring, firing, discharge, discipline, and that they have to be recognized as the quote-unquote employer for many purposes. Now, they cooperate with their local funding units because, of course, it is a county's duty to fund the courts, and that's primarily where the county's oversight occurs, is by deciding what funding level the county is willing to approve for certain things. So yes, that is a correct statement that they are.
So we're not a co-employer, we are just a funding.
We have a complicated relationship with them, but that's how I'll.
Good answer. Thank you, Eric.
We were fortunate that I think the judge was very cooperative and working with us, and that the negotiations went very well.
Right.
So we, on this board, were out of line then when we voted a last best offer.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I would just say that we've done the best that we can, and we've tried to influence things to the best of our ability. And I think this represents a good, an offer that we can live, that the county could live with, at least as expressed with Chairman Boggs and myself, and subject to this board's approval.
How long's it been since they haven't had it?
I think it was
A year?
2 years,
2
yeah.
years. It's been a long time.
How'd that slip by?
Negotiations.
The negotiations did not progress speedily, so it's,
Oh, okay, I just wanted to.
yeah, that's
Little feedback.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
complicated, Gary.
Yeah.
No, but I don't mean to say, I mean, I think it was, and of course and I don't know, Dr. Boggs, did they receive any pay increases recently?
No, they have not.
So,
Because they're in part of a bargaining unit, any of their increases that the board has given have been to NAWRF, so they haven't gotten anything. They did receive any programs that you participated in and the stimulus money, but they didn't receive any increases to the base And I believe the negotiations started when Michael was here, but I'm not positive. Yeah.
And this would, again, provide stability, at least in this contract, until the end of.
We couldn't go another 2 years.
I don't know if you'd want to at that point.
No, I-
Their demands tend to get more forceful the longer they're without a contract.
All right, any final comments regarding this? Madam Clerk?
All I was going to point out, Commissioner Garber, the minutes will reflect needing for consideration to approve.
Thank you.
That's how it's worded.
Thanks for your help.
Absolutely.
All right, hearing no other discussion on item E, all in favor of moving it forward to a final vote tomorrow signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
One nay, Garber, motion will carry.
I move to approve the purchase of a Ford F-250 Super Cab in an amount not to exceed $32,291 and a Ford Escape in the amount not to exceed $23,510.
Support.
Item F, moved and supported. Questions or discussion regarding this item? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign, and motion carries.
I move to approve the refilling of 2 positions in the Sheriff's Department, one for a corrections deputy and one for a road patrol deputy.
Support.
Item G, moved by Commissioner Plowman, supported by Commissioner Garber. Open for discussion and question. Seeing none, all in favor of item G signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move to approve the creation and hiring of a part-time secretary in the Sheriff's Department not to exceed $10,000 for fiscal year 2022 without benefits.
Support.
Item H, moved and supported. Questions or discussion?
Just as a note, this is not a new position as much as it's a transfer from a contractual to an actual employee.
Guys, you have a question of it. Is it the same person?
It's the same person, it's just more appropriate that they should have been a part-time employee as opposed to a contracted employee, given their work that they do.
Yeah, the IRS has guidelines on that.
Yeah, and it's really one of those things where are they an employee or are they a contractor? And it was more important, more appropriate that they be classified as an employee.
I understand. Okay, any other discussion? All right, item H, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
And then item I that we added at the beginning, I move that we approve a 4% increase for all non-reps effective November 1st, 2021, redlining all APAs within their band until they reach the original wage study step.
Support.
Item I, moved and supported. Questions or discussion regarding this item?
Doc, would you like to decipher my motion for us?
Yes, so based on what you guys discussed over the course of the week, we put that together. The health department increase would be about $52,000 for their 26 employees. It would hopefully help with their recruiting and retention. That money will fully come from the health department and their budget, which they receive something like 90%, 80%? 93% of their funding from the state. So its impact on ours is minimal. Then when we look at the APAs and removing them from the number that we had yesterday, this will make an increase to the general fund budget of about $96,000, which will then it will do a couple of things. Number one, it will help to fill some of these vacancies, but it will also, as Judge Clarkston has asked, to help keep parity between the Circuit Court Association and the non-rep District Court Association, which just received a 4% increase, or will, assuming the contract gets ratified tomorrow, that they also will receive something as a non-represented unit as well. And it's absorbable in our budget.
Very good.
Questions, discussion? Commissioners?
I think as far as the health department goes, we did set a precedent last month by carving out, a certain department for a much larger than 4% raise. I'm hoping that this is enough to get Larry a couple of nurses. I believe as of today, even with the increases that we voted in last month, if we had any luck.
My understanding at this point is that there have not been any additional applicants to the prosecutor's office, at least none that have come through the application portal that we see down here. And I do believe that the public defender's office has only gotten one, and they were a student, they're not a.
That is correct. We've only received one thus far as a second-year law student of Wisconsin.
So they're not actually, I mean, they could be hired, and they could work pending the approval of the judges in circuit court and district court under a specific court rule if we needed to, but that requires cooperation across multiple branches to do that. So, no, that I know, unless they have come in directly to the prosecutor's office, and I'm unaware of that.
Yeah.
I will say that by redlining them till they catch up for the APA, so they'll still move in their steps and bands like they would for their regular anniversaries. But when they reach the top of that, by the time that you do your 4% this year, you do the 2% cost of living next year, they will almost be caught up the next year after that if you do another one. So the redlining is really in effect for only about a year or two by the time it's all said and done. So then the pay scale will be back a lot.
So even those big raises, and we're still a county that we even want to apply to, very sorry to hear that, that's all I got.
I think it's probably an issue that a lot of counties are having, more than just us, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to, as the public's here today, we've been having a difficult time filling slots for a couple, 3 years now. And we have increased wages, but even with the wage increases that we're proposing here, we're still substantially under several counties that are around us. Larry, he's just trying to get within the ballpark. We have some pretty good benefits, and the health department's a good place to work, and it's well operated. And so this may help and it may not. We may be back here the first year and discussing this again.
And I will point out, Commissioner Roth mentioned last time, I think at the regular board meeting, that the wage study was not adjusted for 2 years for cost of living.
Right.
So theoretically, when you have a wage study, you should be adjusting it for cost of living every year. Otherwise, the wage study becomes out of date and obsolete. So this will at least catch you up to where it should have been based on the numbers that were provided and no action taken for those 2 years. Kind of. Theoretically, you should compound it, but we're just going with 4% instead of 2 compounded by 2.
Anything else? Do you have any problem getting that motion?
No.
Good.
Nope.
Good.
Okay.
All right, item I. All in favor of moving this on to the agenda tomorrow for a final vote, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
Okay.
So now we'll move on to a non-actionable item, discussion over bonding. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yeah, we could, let's discuss this and then we can decide if we want to do a motion. Yesterday, Huntington Bank came in and there was Andy and Lou and I believe it was Eric, who came and discussed bonding our legacy costs, which is our money that we owe after our reserves for MERS. We should really pursue this. Bonds are selling at 2.5% interest in those ballparks. I have a feeling that that will not be with us horribly longer. This process will take us several months even to get to the point where we have to maybe make a decision that we spend money or not spend money for all the procedural work and the actuarials and so on and so forth. But we have a lot of this information now. Huntington Bank's done a lot for us, and so has MERS, and so on and so forth. It was quite, I know it was a long process yesterday. I think it was 45 minutes that we listened, but it's the process we have to go through. We have to do it. And the money that we could save through arbitrage is substantial. So I think we should get the process rolling. And they, of course, they alluded to the fact they can get the process rolling, but at a certain time, probably this year later, maybe in even in November, December, we may have to expend some money to make sure it all happens on a proper timetable. So, I would make a motion, we can discuss, and then I will make a
Good,
motion.
make the motion.
Okay,
Are we gonna not have like any other offers?
well, we're good.
If I could explain the process. What I'm looking for tonight is the idea that you guys wish to proceed with the bonding. Now, Eric, Louis, and Andy would be the three that we work with no matter what direction you guys go with as far as the fiduciary or the retirement plan, whether it's MERS, Maine or Wealth, or whatever it is you do. They are still the ones that represent us as bond counsel, as our financial advisors, and as the bank that we have been working with for a while. What this would do is signal that this is what the direction you wish to go forward, and they would prepare the paperwork, which would then come back to you for a vote. And it's not until then, as he explained the other day, that you would expend any money. Between now and then, you need to make some other decisions related to the financial manager of those funds, but that's separate from the decision to actually move forward with bonding. And then we would bring that paperwork all back to you for your approval. But I don't want to get those three individuals starting down the road that you don't want to go down.
So Maynard's, so MERS is coming to present tomorrow night, right? But we will hear other presentations when it comes to who our provider is going to be.
That's correct.
But the issue of bonding, that's not something you necessarily.
You don't get other individuals for that. Our bonding attorneys have been with us since the 80s, they're the ones that have done all ours. And just a little truth in advertising, there's really, and Eric can speak to this, two big firms that do bonding in Michigan, and you work with both of them. If one represents us, the other one represents the other side during closing, and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, as far as bond counsel is concerned, you absolutely are better served by going to the absolute experts on that, which I'm not familiar with. Which firm are you guys using? But we can, I mean, but you're absolutely, they've been with you since the 80s. It's a very specialized area of law, and so that would be something that you are well served as saying dedicated bond counsel. It's not something that our firm would be qualified to do.
I think there's also perhaps a little bit of confusion regarding what we're doing now, as opposed to possibly that we're looking at a different pension fund administrator with the possibility of Maine or Wealth.
Yep.
This is only talking about whether we use MERS or move on to Maine or Wealth or something else. This is only talking about taking our liability for our pension, that's a very serious thing, taking advantage of historically low interest rates and locking that in. It should reduce our costs. And John had to smile when he said 45 minutes, because that's about 1 minute per $1 million, so not
Yes.
too bad, really.
Yeah.
Looking at this, again, not a financial expert, but it seems at the moment to be all upside with not a lot of downside as far as the bonding decision itself. Although, because we aren't expending any money for a while, if we find there's downside as we look into this more and become more, increase our expertise on this board regarding this bonding, we can back out without it having cost us anything. We're starting a process now to look into this, and so far, personally, I think it's an excellent financial decision for us to do this.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that everyone here today, this has been a process we've been looking at for over 3 years, actually 6 years. But as our legacy costs have not really shrunk, and they've so on and so forth, this is a process. This will also protect the employee who is now retired, and also the employee who was grandfathered in with the MERS programs. We're not the only one who has done this. We have several governmental entities, even around us, close, who have done this. There's Saginaw. There's just a lot of companies who have done all this kind of activity. So I would encourage it that we move ahead and that we would get it moving. It'll take about 6 months, even if we start today and we work on it every day, it'll take 6 months to complete, so,
And Dickinson writes.
And we want to grab
Dickinson,
this
right, yeah.
before interest rates go up.
yep.
Do we have to get approval from MERS?
No,
No.
MERS will provide an evaluation, which they've already done to them,
Oh, okay.
which is how they came up with the number of what we owe.
Oh, okay.
And MERS will be here tomorrow to present about it, and they're gonna be talking about bonding too. MERS has already talked with those three gentlemen, the one from Dickinson Wright, which is the bond counsel.
Basically, what MERS wants to do is they want to remain our fiduciary relationship, which we will consider.
But that is separate from the actual
Yes.
moving forward with the bonding. We'll be able to, you can look at the pension administrator anytime along the process or after it, as they suggested. But in the meantime, if we get things rolling, we'll be able to close on the bonds by March or April of next year, because it's a linear process for those bonds where you complete one step first and then the next step and the next step. The bonds that we just refunded and resold, you can do things together at the same time simultaneously, which made the process much shorter. But because these are specialized pension bonds, it has to be one thing for the next. And the state government will be reviewing all of our finances in the process, because they will not allow this to happen if we don't meet certain parameters.
Right.
Any final, yes?
Yeah, I'm in favor of saving money instead of spending money. Wisely.
Mr. Chair, I just had one question for Greg. During that presentation, you had a question as far as were there any downsides? They did indicate a few. Were you satisfied with that, or do you think that should be a further discussion?
The big downside is we make these plans based on a certain amount of market fluctuations. So our pension fund, about $120 million, isn't, sitting in a hat somewhere. It is out there, it's in certain investments. And my big fear is that the economy tanks, the market tanks, there's a major adjustment, and then instead of our liability being $50 million, it's suddenly $70 million or $80 million. But, and that can affect our expectations and what we end up paying every year, but it isn't affected by the bonding. If we don't bond, it's that much and more anyway. So really, that is a separate thing. I haven't found yet a downside. I'm not sufficiently, I don't have enough expertise right now to say that we won't find one, and I'm going to be asking a lot of questions and looking at a lot more things. But if we start the process now and we find there are downsides that we don't recognize immediately, we can stop this process in the coming months before we've spent money. But if we don't start the process now, we're trying to get out of town before the sheriff, before the economy tanks and interest rates go up. Because if interest rates go up instead of 2.5%, go up to 4%, suddenly this whole thing becomes not
Much more
viable,
expensive,
perhaps,
yes.
and way more expensive, to the tune of millions and millions of dollars over the next 20 years. So, so I lie in bed at night hoping we can get our financial house in order before that happens, because it's going to. This is a good step to saving our employees' pensions.
Yep.
I strongly recommend it at the moment. A month from now, I might be telling you, I found out this and this, and I am totally against this now. I don't think that'll happen, or I wouldn't vote for it today, but right now, I'm strongly in favor of it, for everything I've seen.
And that cost was approximately $950,000 in fees.
Yes, but the savings far surpass that, especially over time. It's kind of like refinancing your house. You have some upfront fees, but when you go from an interest rate of, say, 5% to 3%, that closing cost, you're going to save that in the first
Oh,
couple of years.
absolutely. I'm just saying that there might be a motive on someone's part when there's almost $1 million in it for them.
Completely true, which is why
You know,
I had a meeting with MERS also that I'll tell you about in a little bit, and sometimes you're getting a sales presentation, and so you take things with a grain of salt, occasionally a bag of salt, And then you start talking to other people and say, okay, what are my downsides? Definitely you never take the word of one person when $100 million is involved.
But by no means will we be treading new territory here. This is something that many.
I was very
Sweet.
impressed with their presentation, though. I thought it was thorough. It made it clear to those of us who aren't experts in finance. I was very pleased with their presentation.
Yes, it was excellent. Yes.
And the one thing I would note that I think a lot of people overlook is that MERS as a pension is a market-based pension. I think people seem to think that MERS just has their money and it's sitting out there somewhere, you know, collecting interest or whatever, but they are invested in the market. And the difference is that if they have a bad go at it, the county pays the difference for the losses. So if we fund up our obligations with them, then we won't be in that boat.
Yeah, I'd just like to, I'll add something to what Doc just said. Starting January 1st, 22, MERS, its goal is a 7.35 interest on our, make 7.35 interest on our funds. If that 7.35 is not realized, let's say it's 6.35, besides costing us more money, we have to make up the difference of that 1% in the portfolio. And if you have a $100 million portfolio, we just got another $1 million bill. That's new this year. It's been in their annual report for us that we have. Of course, it's been there so that we can read it for several years now. So, yeah, we're interested in taking bids from other financial institutions. I imagine Merrill Lynch would be interested too. So, yeah,
By the way, the Dow was up another 150 today.
that's good.
So-
That's good.
So we're still doing okay.
Yes.
All right, so as not to put us at risk of being here until the bell tolls and the trumpet sounds again,
Yes.
let's put this to vote. Item I, all in favor of moving it on to tomorrow for a final vote signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it carries unanimously.
I have one more report thing. In discussions of COVID, we were supposed to have received by October 1st basic.
It's gonna be like Jay.
This is just, there's no vote. This is just reading.
Yes.
Was there a motion on the last
It
item?
was made by Plowman and supported by Garber.
Okay.
Yeah, there was.
Okay, it was just to move something on till tomorrow night, but what was the
Just the
actual motion?
discussion, yeah. We never went into anything.
We didn't make a
It was
motion
just a
out of that
discussion.
Okay,
We had a discussion.
Oh, you're right.
you're right.
You're right.
I'm not trying to, I just,
No, it's good.
clarity
Yeah.
purposes, that's all I'm.
So no motion.
Motion to
Okay.
Do everything.
That's right. And we said we discussed it in the motion. I'll make the motion that we progress with the recommendations of Huntington's Bank's Advisory Committee to proceed with the bonding of our legacy costs.
I support that.
All right, now we have a motion.
There we go. Thank
And
you.
we will vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now it carries. Now it's in to tomorrow's.
Okay, I just have one more thing. COVID. COVID.
We've heard of it.
Our rules, our rules for what we could use to spend it on, the COVID monies, all that sort of thing was supposed to kind of be here by October 1st. And then they said, well, how about December 1st? And now they've moved it to April 1st of next year. What that really means is they haven't decided exactly what we can spend all that on. There is a book about this thick of what we can spend it on, but we don't know if that's really what we can spend it on. Now, there's some areas that we can spend it. We know we're pretty safe. That would be health, extra costs, things. There's several different things, but that really puts spending and trying to have where that money would be used and projects or whatever by 24 tend to be spent by 26. So again, it's really up in the air. So we'll let you know. It may change tomorrow. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for your report today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just a FYI, I'm seeing a meeting that might run a little long. At some point, certain people our last meeting was, I was told I should have taken a break at some point during our 3-hour meeting. So I don't know at what point that would be appropriate, but just, we've only been a little over an hour, if you might consider it.
Let's try to burn through this. I think we're gonna move fast second half here.
All right,
All right,
My
so-
commissioner's report, my chair's report will take a little,
So,
about
we need
10
a
or
break.
15 minutes for me.
Okay, I understand. Let's move on to the Econ Physical Development Committee report. We're gonna go with Garber to run it out for us.
thank you. I move that we accept and place on file the 2021 drain assessments as proposed.
Support.
Item A moved and supported. Questions or discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Item A signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
I move that we approve the apportionment report and direct the spread of taxes in terms of millage rates to be spread on taxable value.
Support.
Item B moved by Garber, seconded by Holzhausen. Questions or discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of item B moving on signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move that we approve the PA 116 farmland agreement application for Mr. Tom Allball for his property located at 7201 West Riley Road, Elsie.
Support.
Item C moved by Garber, supported by Holzhausen. Questions or discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I would move that we approve the bid documents as presented, and that is for the limestone.
Yes, support.
So I need to include that in the motion. So I would move that we approve the bid documents as presented for Henderson Park.
Support.
Moved by Garber, supported by Holzhausen. Questions or discussion? Hearing none. Item D, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I would move that we approve board appointments to Parks and Planning Commission.
Support.
Item E, moved by Garber, supported by Holzhausen. Questions or discussion? Hearing none. Item E, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
That concludes that report.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Garber. Now we'll turn it over to your Health and Human Services Committee report.
All right, I move that we approve the grant agreement between the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the Shiawassee County Health Department for public health services, emerging threats, in the amount of $713,344 for a period of 10/1/21 through 9/30/22, and authorize the board chair to execute the
Support.
contract.
Item A, moved by Garber, supported by Holzhausen. Questions? Yes.
Just, I did have a request from a member of the public that on these 3 items, we have a very brief, just description of wage limits. So whoever would be appropriate to do that.
I'll handle that, Mr. Chairman. These are state funding sources. It's our largest source of funding. It comprises about 93% of our budget, and it funds our core programs. So it funds anything from immunizations to communicable disease to food service inspections, water wells, septic systems. The list goes on. We do a whole lot beyond COVID. And it also includes emergency preparedness funding, which we get annually. And then one of them is the Durant School Wellness Grant, which funds a nurse and a social worker in the Durant School District. So,
And these are all grants, which means money coming in from the outside of the county.
correct. Money coming in.
To fund your department.
That's correct.
Thank you.
It'd be pretty unheard of to put these down. But I understand. Asking is good. Item A, any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, item A, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move that we approve the grant agreement between the Shiawassee County Health Department and the Michigan Primary Care Association for the Durant School Wellness Program in the amount of $150,000 for a period of 10/1/21 through 9/30/22, and authorize the board chair to execute the contract.
Support.
Item B, moved by Garber, supported by Holzhausen. Questions or discussion? Hearing none. Item B, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Sorry.
Wrong me. Anyway. All right, carries with 3. Item C.
Okay, I move that we approve the grant agreement between the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the Shiawassee County Health Department for essential local public health services in in the amount of $1,253,548 for a period of 10/1/21 through 9/30/2022, and authorize the board chair to execute the contract.
Support.
Item C, moved and supported. Questions or discussion regarding this item? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Madam Clerk, please do not let it show on the record that item B was a 3-3. That would actually be a failure. I'm presuming the quiet was more of a late on the draw than it was a no votes. If I'm wrong, correct me.
Nobody mobilized in house.
Right, there you go. There you go. All right. D.
I move that we approve the board appointment to the Veterans Board and Health and Human Services Board.
Item D, moved
Support.
and supported. Commissioner Plowman, questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And now we'll move on to our report from Chairman Broder.
Thank you, and I will ask the board's indulgence to give me 10 minutes or so for this report, because well, I have a few things. First of all, most minor thing that I did, or say minor, but I did do a tour of our drains with our drain commissioner. I found it incredibly interesting, surprisingly so. I know that's rather geeky of me to see where all of our water goes and the job of keeping our drains clear and keeping our county from turning into a swamp and how we share expenses. It was absolutely fascinating. I went up to Mr. Guay to see that. Tony took me out to, way out in the middle of nowhere. It was after those big rains. We're standing on the bank. There's no one around. There's a huge flood going on. And what passed my mind is, I wonder if I'm getting whacked. So put it in a perfect place. Fortunately, I was not.
He didn't push you in the water then, yeah.
He didn't, but I did slip him a few bucks, so that probably helped.
Yeah.
Anyway, on a more serious note, when I took over as chair, one of the first things I tried to do was gain a better understanding of the county's finances. And I think it's especially important if we do a review, not just for ourselves, but for the public and our YouTube and so on, because the fact of the matter is, I think our financial system may not be dire, but from what I've looked into, we're standing on the edge of the cliff and staring over. And I think as we consider the future, I really do think that we have to keep this in mind. So if I can just quickly review some of our liabilities. Our Ope Liability, which is our obligation for our post-retirement employees' medical care. And for those of you who don't know, when you have medical care, pensions, and so on, theoretically you're supposed to fund them at the time, so by the time your employees retire, you have the money to pay the pension benefits, to pay the medical benefits, and so on. Unfortunately, over the decades, and I'm not just saying this body, but all over the country, you had elected bodies who made promises, never funded them, and I guarantee you across this state and across this country, many localities are going to go bankrupt and not pay their pension obligations. They're just not going to be able to. It will never happen. So looking at speaking of that, our post-medical coverage is only funded now at 13%, giving us an estimated shortfall of about $1.6 million. Our 800-pound gorilla is what we've been talking about, and that is our pension obligation. Meeting with our VERS reps last week, it's worse than I thought. They gave us an estimate that we're about 64% funded with a $50 million shortfall. We have about 120, we need about 170, and that's not only a huge number, but when you consider that our budget is only $18 million, having a $50 million shortfall is a staggering amount of money. We also have our capital improvement bonds. Right now, we borrowed 13. We still owe about $8 million on that, and our general obligation bonds of about $2.6 million. So those are some very sobering amounts. We also have been talking. John was talking absolutely correctly about our problems with our employee pay. We've been talking about our employees. We have to get real with our employees. We're going to have to pay our employees more than, at least on some sort of form of parity with surrounding counties, or we're not going to fill our positions. We're going to lose employees. While that doesn't reflect in a balance sheet, we all know it what's out there. We all know that this is a problem. As we start paying our employees more, don't forget it's not just the pay, it's also the Social Security, the Medicare, and other expenses that will fall on us. Medical care is definitely not going to go down. We all know that we still have a new jail that someday needs to be built. I have no idea where we're gonna get $30 or $40 million for a new jail. So like I say, we're not on the edge of collapse, but in my opinion, we're staring over the cliff, and we need to take it very seriously. Looking at the larger picture, again, in my opinion, the feds of Washington, they've gone insane. They're spending countless trillions of dollars that they don't have. That's how we're getting all this COVID money. They are engaging in generational theft, where our production does not in any way cover the amount that Washington's spending. So they're spending us trillions and trillions of dollars that will be passed on to our children. And in speaking with our MERS representative the other day, I was very much struck by the fact that our MERS representative talked about a possible downturn in the economy, a downturn, an adjustment. They call it adjustment in the stock market. When the stock market tanks, they call it an adjustment. You know, a drop that could be 10%, 20%. I spoke earlier about what a disaster that would be for us. Was not a matter of if, it was a matter of it was going to happen. Everybody knows it's going to happen. Profligate spending at the federal level has pushed the stock market up way past where price and earnings ratios could ever justify the numbers that we're getting out of the stock market. Those of us who have a 401k know how well we've done, but it is illusory. When that happens, we better be ready for it. We know as the feds reach their limit, that which cannot continue has to stop. The feds will cut back money as they go bankrupt. We'll cut back money to the states will cut back money to the locals, and all of it's going to be passed on to us. In addition to a recession, we are somehow going to have to find a way to keep providing services and keep our lights on. That is a very dire thing to me. Now, excuse me for the preaching, but there is a reason I'm talking about this, and I'm talking about this because of ARPA money. Dr. Boggs and I met the other day with a gentleman, I'm going to mangle his name, Steve Kurnovic, Steve Kurnovic, who is a financial, belongs to a firm that has been advising various boards and communities and so on all over the state regarding the ARPA money and what can be done with it. Although, as Commissioner Plowman mentioned, right now we only have interim rules. So we can't be sure what's going to happen with interim rules. But right now, there's a limited number of things that we can do with the money. But one of the things that we can do, we all had the calculation, is that we can take a certain amount of that money and declare it as lost revenue. There's a formula. We don't have to prove we've lost the revenue. They take certain formulas based on what we bring in, this and that. And fortunately for us, one break we do get is that we have inside of our county, we have Pleasant View. And Pleasant View pushes up our numbers to a point, and I was very specific with him asking what his confidence level was in this, and it was very high, that we can declare basically about $6.4 million a year in lost revenue. Over 2 years, that means virtually all of the ARPA money can be declared lost revenue and moved into our general fund. Now, we will still have requirements on how we can spend that money and how we can't, but once you dump a bucket of water in a pool, we all know it's hard to exactly say which water you're pulling out of the pool. Underneath, once we have that money in the general fund, we will be able to spend monies from ARPA that, rather than new spending, rather than new buildings, rather than wireless, or wired internet and broadband and all of these other things we're talking about. And as we already have seen, we could spend 10 times the amount of money because of requests that we came in. But rather than that, we can accept our financial situation, spend ARPA money, not on new projects, but on things we're already going to do to support our county. That will give us more monies, perhaps as much as $10 million, that can then be moved into, we'll have money freed up, that if we bond this $40 or $50 million, we can then pay down our bonds. We take that money, we also perhaps take some of our delinquent tax fund money, maybe another $8 million or so. We can significantly pay down those bonds and put ourselves, rather than being heroic and making everybody happy by spending this ARPA money and giving it, instead, we can take the future, probably beyond where most of us will be here, but we can secure the future. So 10 years down the line, these gentlemen the other day were talking about how our debt will become unsustainable. And we have an opportunity, a very unique, probably once in a lifetime opportunity to save this county from financial ruin and save our employees' pensions. So I just wanted to take a little bit of time, tell you as your chairman what the research I've done on our financial situation and what I genuinely believe that this board should do in order to prevent some of the terrible future that we could have if a few things go wrong. That is all I have to report. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Well said, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Coordinator.
Two quick things. One, I will have a budget for you for next month for you to review, so you can hold the public hearing, and then the resolution for adoption the following month, or whatever the appropriate order is, so that you will have the budget finalized by December completely, because it takes 2 months to do it. We're in the process of working through that, Tracy and myself. The other thing, and the last thing I want to discuss just very briefly, is we had some comments about apportionment on Monday, and the clerk and myself discussed this. You were, a citizen talked to you guys about the number of commissioners. Under the new law, under the new rules, the apportionment stuff, the new rule, or the new maps, none of that stuff comes to this board any longer. So you have no direct involvement with that. That is completely up to the apportionment committee, who is now in the review period for the map that they created. That is not something that this board has any control over, just to address that issue with you. And prior to this year, if I'm correct, Madam Clerk, it did come to the Board of Commissioners for final vote. That is no longer the case.
Correct.
And that is all I have.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move into our public comment section, and without any further ado, Ms. Ocknicky, is she here still?
Sushi, I believe.
Did she? Okay. Well, then we will let you go first. Floor is yours.
So Tom, you get to go first.
Okay, I talked to Shelley, she had to leave. But there's something that's very important that we need. She has to answer to parents. Parents want to know what is going on. This is the first time where school boards are just being shut out. And they have to answer, and their students move. When we talk about Crown not having enough, I'll tell you what, private schools are growing real fast right now. Very fast. I talked to Shelley, I have FOIA'd for this, and I'm gonna ask for it again. We want a copy of a signed mandate from the state. As we know, the state gave it all to the local health department to do the mandates. If what you're saying is true, that it's coming from the state, then we want the signed document from the state. Otherwise, a signed document from the health department. Now, one other thing that I don't agree on. You hired and you fired the health director. So when you say you have no control over the health department, You're telling all of our taxpayers here that's an independent organization that no one controls. Who controls the health department? You hire them, you can fire them. The last thing is, you need to know I've done it for you. It got turned down from the prosecutor's office. I put it in to Dr. Boggs to bring it here, but right now the prosecutor is saying it's really in his ballpark again to decide whether he's going to honor the FOIA or not. Transparency. We've got some issues with a former prosecutor that needs to be addressed. I'm not going to go into names, and I'm not going to bring up victims' names. But this has got to be addressed. It's got to be taken care of. I FOIA'd to find out why we haven't seen any prosecution yet. It's going here. They don't want to talk about it. So if I don't get the FOIA from the prosecutor's office, who doesn't want to do it, I'm hoping it comes here. Otherwise, it's got to go to circuit court. But all of you and all of our residents need to know that we hold all, even if you're a prosecuting attorney, to the same standard. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
You're going, you started yours.
Carmen, you're up. Go ahead, yep. Floor's yours.
Okay, so mine is a rebuttal to the commissioner's discussion. If in fact what was said is true about the state mandate on quarantine, it was not enforced or discussed as a mandate in the county public schools until October 8th, when an unsigned letter came out from the county health department director, and there is a paper trail to prove this. There were no COVID mandates. They were in fact stated as recommendations from the Shiawassee County Health Department from the start of school up until the October 8th letter. Also, not to be rude, but so we are all clear, I am fully aware that the mask mandate came from Corona School Board, and they have been addressed as well. However, let me repeat what I said the first time. Corona Public Schools was overwhelmed and felt that they had to take some sort of action due to the county quarantine mandate that came out on October 8th. The one that forced hundreds of healthy students into quarantine. The one that Larry is now calling a state mandate and now saying has been in place this entire time. Those of us who have been paying attention all along know this is not true. And if in fact it is, ask yourselves, what was the purpose of the October 8th letter? Those of us who have been involved in the county public schools all along know this is not true. I, in fact, am an educator in this county, and I know that that is not true. So something is not adding up right with this situation and with this story. I don't know where it's not. I don't know if it was a miscommunication from the director, Larry Johnson, to all of the public schools in the county. But what was the purpose of that October 8th letter? That's what I would like to know. There needs to be some kind of explanation to the community, to the parents. And this is one thing that we have been trying to have happen. We've been asking parents. There's been several other parents who have sent emails, who have sent phone calls that are not being returned or answered. I asked him to come to the school board meeting to answer questions that concerned parents have, or to state the reason behind this whole thing. And he didn't come or send a representative. The community has questions, and I'm not the only one. I'm standing here today as a group of us parents in this community, not just Corona, who have questions about all of this. And like I said, if it was a mandate from the beginning, research what the purpose of that October 8th letter was for. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, I see you guys hired experts to, go over our finances. Let's stick with the experts on code. Apparently, we got a lot of them here. We just need to probably pick which one's the best expert. I'm glad Corona stuck with their mask mandate. It worked in Cary, it'll work here. My grandson goes to Wassee School and he had to be quarantined for 10 days. He didn't like it. He's in second grade. He told me he will wear a mask all year if he has to. He wants to go to school. Anybody's got questions here on this board, talk to Larry. We don't need to get it from Tom. We don't need to get it from parents. Listen to their concerns, get your information where you need to get it from. We don't need all these experts telling us everything.
Anybody else that would like to address the committee at this time? All right, hearing none, in that case, we will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah, pursuant to MCL 15.268 to discuss the litigation strategy regarding pending litigation with our attorney in the matter of Ruggiero vs. Shiawassee County Board of Commissioners et al. Shiawassee County Circuit Court Case Number 21-5977-CZ. Motion on the floor,
No.
and with an addition.
Yeah, here it is. Let me,
Yeah, you guys read it right out.
okay, I'll read the addition. Assign the Genesee County Circuit Court as case number 21-11544-CZ, as discussion in open session would be detrimental to the financial position of the county with regard to our litigation and settlement position. That completes the motion.
Okay, we're entertaining a motion to go into closed session. Do we have a second?
Support.
The chairman has seconded the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you roll call?
Commissioner Webster.
Yes.
Commissioner Holzhausen.
No.
Commissioner Root is absent. Commissioner Garber.
No.
Commissioner Marks.
Yes.
Commissioner Plowman.
Yes.
And Chairman Broder.
Yes.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this board will enter into closed session, and as such, we would ask that everyone please find an area in the lobby to remain, and we will let you know when deliberation has ended.
Or, quick question, are you gonna vote on this?
I want to vote no.
Because he's not here.
So we never really went in.
So that means Jeremy is a member of this committee.
I think Jeremy's over at every 6
But we have reading, Dr. Boggs read to us.
I talked to him and he said
Robert's Rules of Order says it can be the whole board.
and he said he'd show up and vote and participate and I wish he'd show up.
Okay, so you're back in session, so we'll start all over with
No.
minutes.
No.
3 minutes at the end.
Nice try, John.
In fact, we even voted to exclude you from all future public comment.
Yeah, no, you did the right thing. Thank you. All right, Mr. Board Chair, would you care to explain, or I will?
My understanding is that the requirement to go into closed session, Eric, please correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that we need 2/3 the vote of the full board, which means we need,
If I may, Commissioner.
Yeah, please.
The statute states that you need a 2/3 vote of those members who are elected and serving. Out of an abundance of caution and without taking any position on this matter, we would be, as your attorneys, much more comfortable if that was 2/3 of 7 instead of 2/3 of 6. And as such, there may be a motion or a discussion to reconsider this motion, or this motion may be withdrawn, and there may be more discussion to reinstitute it and have another vote on it.
So how do we actually, what is the first motion that needs to be made?
Did you make the motion,
Yes,
Commissioner
I did.
Plowman?
I would-
Do you move to withdraw your motion?
I move to withdraw my motion as presented.
Do I need to?
I think there should be a vote, a second. You have to support the
that
withdrawal.
withdrawal.
Now do we need
Okay, it's
to
been
vote?
moved and supported to withdraw the previous motion of the board going into closed session regarding MCL 15.268E, and we are now still in session, and we will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Well, you gotta vote on it.
You gotta vote on it.
You have to vote on it.
We have to vote to go.
Well, you gotta vote to.
All right, we
Withdraw the
are
motion.
voting to withdraw the motion.
Really?
Withdraw the other motion.
Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Commissioner Olshausen, this is a withdrawal.
Yes.
Commissioner Root is absent.
Can't one of the commissioners just reconsider?
Commissioner Garber.
Yeah.
Commissioner Plowman.
Yes.
Commissioner Webster.
Yes.
Vice Chair Marks.
Yes.
And Chairman Broder.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, please reinstate.
Motion is off the floor.
I would now reinstate the motion that we have so spoken, and I would make that motion to go into closed session.
We have a motion to go into closed session. Do we have a
Hold on,
second?
our attorney had something to say.
I just wanted to make sure that the text of that motion could be passed down to the clerk, so it's
Yes,
accurately
it
reflected.
is
in the minutes.
identical to the previous motion, am I not mistaken?
Yes, that would be in my
Okay,
motion.
that is exactly the same motion. It is now on the floor once again for a possible second and a vote.
I'll second that.
Motion has been seconded. Madam Clerk, barring no discussion from commissioners, we will call roll on this item.
Okay. Commissioner Root is absent. Commissioner Garber.
Yes.
Commissioner Marks.
Yes.
Commissioner Plowman.
Yes.
Commissioner Webster.
Yes.
Commissioner Olshausen.
Yes.
Let me give you the eye.
Wait a
And
minute.
Chairman
Let's see.
Broder.
Yes.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this board will now enter into closed session officially with a unanimous -1 vote of a commissioner who is absent.
Okay, then I got a couple motions.
I get it.
Do you guys want us to wait for the, you guys are going to move it to tomorrow, right? Okay.
Yes, well,
Correct.
when I move these at all, automatically moves to tomorrow.
And then I assume we don't need, because tomorrow.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Sorry the meeting took so long.
It's not your fault, it's all right.
Yeah.
Doing public session.
Tomorrow will be longer if no.
Good God. No.
First of all,
We got merged tomorrow.
Yeah, oh, I know.
I've heard their. Yeah.
Another Southwestern Michigan County, we had a close exposure outbreak of several board members had to use the.
All right.
Just, yeah, a little.
Morgan,
Since they got to zoom in, I said.
Morgan, everyone in the lobby's been introduced back into the
Yes,
open
and
session.
we are live.
Thank you. Mr. Boggs, if you could please check that lobby. Very good.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
It's nice to see you all in person.
All right. Colleagues, at this time, we will either entertain motions or we will adjourn. What's the pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion. I move that the board adopt its attorney's recommendations with regard to settlement of pending litigation, Ruggiero versus Shiawassee County Board of Commissioners, regards to Shiawassee County Circuit Court case number 21-5977, CZ. That's my motion.
I will support that.
Been moved and supported. Actionable item. Is there any discussion over this item?
Just to be clear, this is a motion that we will move to a final vote tomorrow. Correct?
Yes.
All right.
So authorization of settlement? authorization of settlement.
Come on.
Well, we can't go into that. Hearing no discussion, all in favor, well, actually, we'll do a roll call vote, Madam Clerk, on this one.
Commissioner Webster.
Yes.
Commissioner Holzhausen.
Yes.
Commissioner Root is absent. Commissioner Garber.
Yes.
Commissioner Plowman.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Marks.
Yes.
And Chairman Broder.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr.
Any others?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion. I move that the board authorize expenditure of up to $5,000 for the purpose of conducting board training on the Open Meetings Act and authorize Chairman Broder to execute a contract for the provision of such training.
Motion on the floor
Support?
and a support regarding commissioner training on OMA. Discussion. Hearing none. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Holzhausen.
Yes.
Commissioner Root is absent. Commissioner Garber.
Yes.
Commissioner Marks.
Yes.
Commissioner Plowman.
Yes.
Commissioner Webster.
Yes.
And Chairman Broder.
Yes.
Are there any other possible motions at this time? None? Hearing none. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.